I moved here 8 years ago. After my wedding, I decided to just stay. I had a remote job with a marketing agency, and I was going into the office, I think it was like maybe twice a week, and just basically said, I want to move. This is not going to work for me living in New York City with the lifestyle that New York City brings. That summer, I rented a car and I literally went on Google Calendar. I'm like, I want to do these 50 things in like 1 week and experience as much as possible. There's nothing missing. The conclusion of that week is like, what else do I need? Right? Nothing.
So what is the Dominican Bridge?
Okay, so for me, the Dominican Bridge is a community where like-minded people in the Dominican Republic are getting together and just bringing ideas together, sharing their experiences. Either you moved here from the U.S., Canada, wherever you moved from, and we're talking about our experiences through this podcast, the newsletter. We get together, we do meetups. Also, like Dominicans who went out of the country and then came back. There's like a mix of experiences there that I think is unique. So we're sharing what that is with each other. That's what the Dominican Bridge is about.
For me, it hits home, right? Because as you know, I've been here for a little over a year. And one of the things that convinced me to come is a meeting that I went to where we met a bunch of Dominican Americans and expats. And I didn't know really there was such a community here in the Dominican Republic. So when I saw that instantly, I was like, all right, this is something. I went back home and I'm like, man, we're selling the house. We're moving. This is it, because I've been wanting to do it for a long time. And it's something that I didn't even know that I needed, right? Because I was thinking, okay, I'm going to ingrain myself into the culture, which is what I want, coming from Dominican parents. And so I was fully expecting to dive into the culture, which I am doing, but I didn't know at the time that I needed, or that it's going to be convenient to have like-minded people in the island already,
You mean convenient, or that it's like when you came here, you're like, oh shit, I'm actually home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't such, okay, so let's say, maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, would be much different. Now there's a thing where there's many people moving, obviously mostly Dominicans, because we are in the Dominican Republic. And so because of technology and remote work, you got a lot of people, and other factors as well. You have a lot of people moving here, right? So it's something that it makes you a lot more comfortable for those that are looking to not be in a different place and be totally, have to assimilate into something completely different. It kind of gives you like a soft landing into an area where there are already people that you are used to kind of socializing with.
Right. I think also for this community, there's a part of maybe not, being out of where you're comfortable, or where you're like automatically accepted, included, right? So it's like if you're an expat here, sure, this country, everyone is nice, everyone's lovely, but you're not, you're not really, you weren't like from the country. So it's a difference in how you might feel when you get here. But knowing that there's a community that we're kind of all going through the same things, it brings home that there are other people that are feeling like you feel included. You feel like, hey, I see what you're seeing. I understand what's happening, because I know what are the experiences you would have like in the States, or what you would have being outside of this country and then coming back. So just going through all of that in life and then coming back here and just being able to share that experience with someone else, I think that is the Dominican Bridge.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because if you look at it this way, somebody that's maybe never been to the U.S. that lives here locally might not understand, or might not have the same, obviously, exposure that you had growing up in the U.S. And so, or let's say you're from Canada, the same thing. It's a different type of culture. Society is different. So you're going to be able to connect with these people a lot more, and you'll be able to speak the language, whether it's business, whether it's family and values. And so it makes it a lot easier for sure.
Also, you know what bridge is, right? So it's like it's a bridge. It's not like it's a two-way street.
Right.
So yes, it's people from outside of the DR coming to the DR, but it's also how the local culture gets intertwined with who we are, and like us as Dominican Americans becoming more Dominican because we're in the DR. People who are not Dominican coming here and experiencing the culture, just getting another side of how people kind of relate. I don't know if you know, like in some other cultures, it's things are a little bit more distant. Things are a little bit slower. Here, it's like usually more warm. Everyone is a little bit more happy, and that is like bringing that to the American culture right now. I think is important.
Right.
Like more community focused, more like, hey, how can I help you? How can we just stick together? Like a lot of that being mixed with all the good stuff from the US, I think is what also makes the bridge.
Yeah. And on that point, let's talk about this a little bit because there is an expat wave or a Dominican diaspora wave right now. I mean, I think it's you can't miss it. You know, it's very apparent. The people like yourself that have been here many years have seen it throughout the years. And right now, I think you probably would say this is like the height of it, right? Or as much as you've seen, you've been here 7 years. So you've probably seen this sporadically happening throughout the years, but would you say now the way I see it, there's plenty of people, a lot of interest and a huge wave of people coming here right now. You've been here longer than me. How do you see it?
I think it's just accelerating. Um, I think it's more to do with what's going on outside of the DR than what's going on inside of the DR. But I will say in the DR, people are starting to now trust more. I've been here for I think it's more than 8 years now. And since I moved here, everything I felt, pretty good. Everything is safe. Everything is, I've had a good experience from the start. But I think it's just now that people are actually being convinced because it has been so many years where, safety, I think has improved a lot. Services have improved. Things that weren't easy back then now are easy, right? Like Amazon's coming to the DR apparently, right? So like people who are used to that type of convenience, it's now kind of feeding into the country, and people are seeing that, well, if everyone else is building this country up like this, I can easily live there.
Yeah.
Right? Like that switch of can I live in the Dominican Republic is switching on for a lot of people now.
Yeah.
Not 8 years ago when I moved here.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. When you're talking about outside forces, right, and outside happenings, let's say, for example, in the U.S., and this doesn't have to be U.S., could be Canada, could be in Europe, there are financial, strains right now, right? The economy is not that great for most people. Jobs are not as easy to find. Inflation, prices have gone up. Cost of living has gone up in the last couple of years. And so that's definitely a factor. But I would also add that the Dominican Republic has gotten, a lot better as well. So it's not just that. It's the combination of everything, right? Where people come here and they're like, wow, I know I'm one of them. We're here in Santiago, right? And my parents are from San Jose de las Matas, El Campo, right? Very different than Santiago. My view of Santiago was coming from the airport straight to San Jose de las Matas every time I came here. If I would come 3 times a year, I just really didn't have any connection with Santiago, right? So I've seen it as maybe a city that needed more infrastructure. I thought, no way I'll live there because, it's just too much going on, all the motorcycles and all that. But what I didn't know, now living here for over a year, is all the nice areas, how many good communities are out here, right? And how good it is to live when you can live and are fortunate enough to live in those communities, right?
Right.
So it's a different dynamic, right? Your family you're from here, from Santiago. You grew up visiting Santiago. I grew up visiting the Campo, right? And my family, being from the Campo, they grew up with no electricity, with letrina, right? No toilets.
Yeah.
Maybe water was hard to find, and so for them, it's like, okay, well, the those Dominicans that are exposed to that would say, well, the DR is not like the US, right? Maybe it's not as modern and whatnot. And, I beg to differ. Is it the same? Absolutely not. Is it a lot better than when my family lived here 30 years ago? I mean, even 5 years ago, it's night and day, right? Night and day difference. And I think that's what, like, to your point, people are starting to figure out now, right? So the narrative is changing, right? Quickly, and not just to here, to any other country that you have connections with, or you might not. I know plenty of people that might want to go to Portugal, never even been there, right, but they'd seen a couple videos. Thanks to technology now, you get to see what it's like. You get to hear stories like yours and mine,
right.
And so a lot of interesting things when it comes to that.
I think that right now it's kind of like a perfect storm for all the people looking at this country, because I mean, look at all the surrounding countries. I'm not gonna point at a specific one, but there are a lot of good things going for this country. And it's not only everyone capitalizing it, like the country capitalizing on bringing in investment, people, Americans moving in here and finding investment opportunities, starting businesses here, making a life here. I think there are a lot of people here that there are a lot of people that are moving here that see that in the next 10 years, this country is going to provide so much opportunity. And really, I would say like the majority of people aren't seeing it yet.
I would agree. Yeah. I mean, we have people that are in our circle that are super, super high on what's going on in this country. And, you have people, that say, this is going to become Miami in the next 10 years,
right,
and I've heard that a lot. Hasn't been from just one or two people. It's been a good amount of people that feel that are projecting that. And so they're saying, buy up all that you can. Now, land is one of the things that people talk about the most, because there's, you get leverage with land. It appreciates a good amount over time. And so there's definitely that upwards trajectory right now happening in the country for sure.
What's another thing that I've kind of noticed about that though is it's not just investment. We are getting people buying properties and investing here. But they're trying to also build a connection to the country. Like there are people that invest in things and it's just purely financial. It's like, I have a Apple stock. Right, that's it. I'm invested monetarily. That's it.
Right, they're diversifying their portfolio.
Right. That's basically it. But here, it's like people are buying property, and they are, trying to make a life here, and they're saying, how can I grow here, but also live here, also experience that growth directly, as opposed to from afar. Like the counter example that's even still connected to the country is like our Dominican American parents, grandparents, that they're like, oh, I want to own an apartment in the DR for retirement. And I say for retirement because a lot of them just want to stay in the States. They're like, yes, I want to have something in the DR, but it's like more like an emotional, have something in there.
It's a connection, an emotional connection, right? Just in case type of scenario.
Right. But we're getting a lot of people that they're like, well, I can invest there. I can maybe buy some property in Punta Cana, buy some property by the beach, and then I can live actually very comfortably with my investments here and have a better life than what I'm having in the States.
Right.
So it's a combination of things that I don't think that's happening anywhere else.
No, there's definitely more of that happening here. So with that being said, you're talking about reasons why people might want to move here. What we are hearing, why they might want to move here, why they have been planning to move here or to create something here for the future. Talk about a little bit about your story, right? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah. So I moved here 8 years ago or so. Basically, after my wedding, I decided to just stay. I had a job, a remote job with a marketing agency on Madison, and I was going into the office. I think it was like maybe twice a week. And I just basically said I want to move. This is not gonna work for me living in New York City with the lifestyle that New York City brings.
Mm-hmm.
And I that summer I had I had come to the DR to plan the wedding. And then that summer I rented a car and I took a week and I took my calendar. I literally went on Google Calendar and I'm like, I want to do these 50 things in like 1 week. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go for a week. I'm gonna take a break and experience as much as possible. In that week, I noticed DR is safe. DR is like ready.
And this is 8 years ago.
This is 8 years ago. Exactly. DR is ready for me to like just be here. There's nothing missing. That is what that week told me. The conclusion of that week is like, what else do I need? Right? Nothing.
Yeah.
So after that, we kept going back and forth thinking, should we move here? How would we do the move? And then it was kind of very abrupt and spontaneous. And we just, right after the wedding, we stayed. Then I moved into an apartment, a penthouse, which was super cheap. I think I was paying maybe like 400, maybe like less than $400 a month, which is pretty good for the time. It was 18,000 pesos.
For the time and for that area where
Right.
yeah.
For the area I'm in, pretty good area. And, ever since then, I've just been growing my business. I started a marketing agency actually from here, but with clients in the US. Like the majority of my clients are, for some reason, they're in California. Like that's just what has come to me. But it was all doable living here.
Right.
I knew a lot of people over there, but really there was nothing holding me back, stopping me, slowing me down from being in this country and building my business.
Yeah. See, for me, it's a much different story. I mean, there's some similarities, but I've been here for a little over a year, right? But I've been wanting to come here for many, many years, right? And there's a lot of reasons for it. I really didn't ever. I was born and raised in the U.S., but I never really felt connected, right? Like I was part of the U.S. I would feel that every time I would visit this country, and so for the longest time, I wanted to move here, right? But props to you, because 8 years ago, I probably would have felt very different about the country.
Nobody did that back then.
Let's put it this way. The last year, I've seen 3, or has it been now 4 major hotels open up. We have Agora Mall, which is a world-class mall, right? So you have H&Ms, and I'm not a big spender, but these are things that some people value and typically you see with growth, right?
Right.
And so that being said, the city is growing, and how about all the businesses? Like every day we see new businesses open up and innovative businesses too. Now, we're not talking about just restaurants, right? We have AI, right? We have AI in the forefront now, coming forward just like everywhere else. And a lot of people that are a lot more open-minded. I mean, you know this. You lead a marketing company. You've been looking to enter this market for a while, and so you've probably seen there's a shift, right?
Yeah, 100%.
With that,
100%. I'm seeing people open their eyes, asking questions, being more curious. 100%.
Right. So for me, this is like the perfect time to move here, in my opinion, because I get to have what I really wanted, which was my culture, right? The Dominican culture. And I have kids, right? I want them to also experience that. What I've seen with nieces and nephews and just cousins and just growing up in the US is that, the next generations keep coming with less Spanish speaking abilities or capabilities, right?
Right.
So that's kind of erasing a little bit. Like we still have, sure, the Dominican culture and stuff, but we were becoming more and more American, which is nothing wrong with that, but for me personally, it's very important to be still involved in my parents' culture in the past generations, right? Which is here.
Right.
And so I get to have that, and I get to have a modern life as well with, hot water, electricity, all the basic things that I have no issues with, or seldom do I have, rarely, I would say, do I have issues with. And so, I'm very happy. I'm very happy that I'm here. Moving here for me and for my family was a no-brainer, right? Quality of life, in my opinion, is a lot better here. You have more family values overall. I'm not saying there is none where I came from, which happens to be the U.S. But in my, estimation, in my opinion, here it's just a lot better to live for a lot of reasons, right? Let's take Sundays, for example. Sundays in the U.S. for me growing up, and this is, I'm not sure, I've spoken to people where they feel the same way. Sundays where it's just a day to kind of reflect on what you're going to do for that week, right? So whether there's school the next day where you're kind of bummed out, it's kind of like a bummed out day, where here it's a very relaxed day because most things are closed. And also in the afternoon to the evening, then everybody starts coming out, families get together, and it's almost like a Saturday night in the U.S., but being Sunday night, even though everybody works the next day. So I appreciate small things like that, right? Another reason is, I have kids, right? And they were getting ready to get into school to, start school. And we don't need to go into detail, but we all know what's going on right now in the U.S. And, last year was no different. And so my wife and I just really weren't comfortable with the fact of putting our kids in school in the U.S., where we had an opportunity to come here, which, by the way, in my opinion, just the schools are just so much better. Now, I'm lucky that I have them in really good private schools. But in the U.S., it's just, the public school that I went to growing up in the U.S. in the 90s, I feel like that's completely different. I'm not going to say it's gone or anything, but if you think about why that might be, right? Not to get too much into this, but cost of living is gone up tremendously and income hasn't gone up that much, right? So can you imagine the teachers? How much passion do you have to really want to teach?
Yeah, I can't imagine.
No,
I want a teacher with what's going on over there with the cost of living to really have the energy that I received in elementary school.
Exactly, right? And with everything that's going on, right?
And I'm seeing more of that same energy here than I ever received in the US.
Right.
With my kids.
And that's a good point. So that's something I'd see, the kids, they hug the teachers. It's a very family oriented environment, where in the US it's very like taboo to even like touch a child or anything like that for good reason. But, sometimes you lose a little bit of the family aspect, the family values when you get that strict about things, right? And so there's a lot of things that you have to consider. I think for me, just one of the biggest things for me was quality of life.
You moved here because of quality of life, right? The question is, do you have the right to be here?
Do I have the right to be here
in the country?
Anybody could do whatever they want, if that's what you.
No, what I'm saying is, look, we're talking about the influx of people moving to the DR, and that trend is a little, iffy because prices are going up here. Things are getting more crowded. There are a lot of changes happening in this country because of all the people moving, the immigration basically coming into the country. So what I'm saying is, do you think that, what are the pros, or what do you think is this the right way?
I think it's one of the ways that this country is growing, right? So you take that away, exactly. It's like all this growth we've been talking about.
That's exactly why I asked you the question.
Yeah, is it really here? The answer is maybe not as much. No way, right? Because a lot of outside investments are the reason why this country is growing as fast as it is as well. And so if you take that away, then of course the country is not growing as much. So it's a catch-22. You can't have things both ways. What we need to, focus on, I think, in which to give people credit that aren't Dominican even, right, that come here, they want to get, to be involved with the local culture, right?
Yeah,
I
that's
have
what I've
not
seen.
seen anyone that is not Dominican, because if you're Dominican, that's easy, right? Of course if you're here, it's because you love the Dominican culture, right?
Right.
I would imagine. And so someone that, let's say, didn't know anything about the Dominican culture, or they're coming here for other reasons. They love the country. They see an investment opportunity. We know many of those people, right? But, you would probably agree with me, I would imagine, in to say that those people are in love with this country as well. And they defend this country
Yeah.
very much. And they're always looking to learn the language. They're looking to fine tune. They love the campos. They love those things, and so, I don't see it as an issue. Unfortunately, prices do go up, and depending on what social class you're in financially, it does affect you. But that's the same all over
Right.
the world. That's not just here. That's in the U.S., Canada, Africa. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're at.
But I also like, I think that's also a big part of what we're trying to do with Dominican Bridge, which is like, um, there's the side of like, yeah, sure, this is a good investment opportunity, right? The country's growing, all of that. But the mixing of the culture, the opening of minds, and just like, um, things that we can see because we grew up in the States, right? And then things that we now can see because we're here, right? There are things that the DR culture can actually teach the US. Because, a lot of times we're focusing on like, what can we bring from the US to improve this country, right? But it's also, how is it that the Dominican culture improves us individually? How do you combine all of that? How do you have like that community based lifestyle where people are more friendly, think people get together, there's the social life is just more active, but still be able to talk business with someone and um have that curiosity, have that ambition that I've really only seen in the States. Like, how can we combine those things?
Right. And you would probably say
Dominican Bridge.
well, yeah, Dominican Bridge community is
That's it.
one of the platforms that can be used to do that. But let you bring up some good points, right? How do we combine both? It's keeping the family values, keeping the friendliness, and trying to improve on things that maybe is not so good here, like simply customer service, all in general,
Yeah,
right?
we could have a podcast just on that.
Yeah, and so customer service is something that the U.S. definitely has a one up on, and in other places outside of this country, a lot of the Western civilizations, or a lot of the Western countries, they have, that more down packed, and so that's something that could be introduced here, and it's been introduced here, right? And so, how do you get the customer service to be better without changing? One of the reasons why it's not that great is because it's more laid back, right? And there's less stress.
How do you, yeah,
So,
how do those things combine? But it's not a spectrum,
right?
right? Like, it's not either or, but there
I
has
think
to
it
be
could
a
be
good
done.
compromise.
Yeah, I think it could be done.
Good service, but still this laid back,
Right.
friendly.
I think it can be done, and I think it is being done. And because when you see people like that we know that are coming from other countries, Egypt and the U.S., Canada, and they are setting up businesses here. Now they're hiring and they're training their staff
right
to be that way, right?
at
Because
that
that's
level.
what they know to be good business,
Sense.
exactly, right? And so you're getting that slowly happening, and then that's influencing everybody else. I mean, you see it with our business, right?
Right.
Well, we're taking meetings with clients locally. I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, you told me from 7 years ago, even like a couple years ago to now, all of a sudden people are more willing to listen to you, right? They're more trusting with all these new things that they really don't know much about, whether it be technology, AI, marketing, right? These
Yeah, I think
things
that's
are now, people are opening up to it. So, which is a great sign for this country, right? Because now we're going to be heading towards a much better situation, right? Infrastructure wise, right? And so, and with the economy as far as the economy is concerned. And so, a lot of exciting things with that happening.
So what can everyone expect from Dominican Bridge?
Oh man, I love talking about this. I mean, this is really exciting, right? And everybody that's already in our community and the people around us that knows what's going on, they're very excited about it, and for good reason. So we're gonna continue to have group gatherings, right, all over the country. The first one was a couple weeks ago, or about a month ago in Santiago, but we're gonna do those all over the country, and so people like us could get together, exchange contact information. We're expecting there's going to be JVs, joint ventures coming out of this with as far as business goes, and just, family gatherings as well. And so we're going to be focusing on that. The newsletter, guys, look out for that newsletter, because trust me, you're going to connect with it. It's going to be news that matters, right? News that affects our community, right? We're not going to be talking about just random stuff. And then also this podcast, this podcast is a big one. We'll be talking about our experiences growing up, why we wanted to, why we like living here. We're going to have spots with other people on the podcast, their stories. People have been here 14 years that might not even be Dominican, Dominicans that are looking to move here. So just unlimited topics, and I'm excited about it.
So another thing that's coming up with the Dominican Bridge is we're gonna find a lot of people that we know personally, and that like people just reach out to us that they have a unique experience coming into the country, because like our story is a little bit more typical Dominican American. Grew up in New York. That's where like Dominicans went in the 80s and 90s. But people from other countries, right? People with unique experiences coming here, and how does their culture mix with Dominican culture, and how they see things compared to how we see things, and just bringing those stories to the table.
Yeah.